Fellow Falcoholics, what is up? Welcome to episode 163 of the Falcoholic Live. I'm your host, Kevin Knight, joined by two excellent co-hosts this evening. First of all, we have with us Adnan Ikic. He is at Say Which Way. Adnan, how are you doing tonight?
Nervous.
Yeah.
In the middle of the Braves World Series game too. The Hawks are also playing tonight, but I also care about that. But right now, the Braves dominate the Atlanta sports landscape.
They do, I understand. I understand it. If you're a true Braves fan, talking about regular season Falcons games that, I had obviously some good, and we'll get to that, but they don't quite have the pop of the World Series. I don't necessarily blame anyone. I'm sure it'll be a lighter crowd tonight. Thank you for everyone that is tuning in, even if you're going to be, distracted. We understand, but thank you all, including Adnan, for making time. And then we also have with us tonight Eric Robinson. He is on Twitter at _Eric_Robinson. Eric, how are we doing tonight?
Not too bad. I'm also kind of caught up with the World Series as well a little bit. A little intrigued by it.
Yeah, I'm intrigued. I ready to talk some Falcons.
Yeah. Especially some Kyle Pitts. That guy deserves a little attention right now.
Yeah, I think Kyle Pitts could probably occupy our attention for at least 60 minutes, but we don't have to depend on that because right around 8:45 we're going to have our Panthers preview with a good friend of the show, Brian Beversluis. He will be here right around 8:45 for our Panthers preview, so you guys have that to look forward to. As always, guys, like and subscribe if you enjoy the program. Check out our Patreon page and check out the Discord as well if you enjoy chatting Falcons football with fellow fans and us occasionally. I won't say that we type in there a lot, but occasionally there is some good discourse. So if you want to be part of that, check it out in the show description. I had a chance to rewatch this Falcons game. It's always nice to rewatch a win instead of a loss. It's a lot more fun, in my opinion. And
we're on a winning streak.
Yeah,
how about that?
I can't remember the last time that happened. I mean, it happened in 2020, like for a couple games, right?
First time the Falcons have won back-to-back in October or earlier since 2018.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it definitely. I'm glad we're stringing some wins together at a time when it's clear that the NFC is like wide open in terms of the wild card race. Like
you're speaking my language.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry, I stole your thunder there, Adnan.
Language.
So I'm just gonna let Adnan go now because I'm sure this is Adnan's. This is his time.
No. Yeah, give us another week. I will say though, I think the Falcons are tied for the last wild card spot, which is not a bad place to be in, considering the fact that at this time last year we were 1-7.
Yep. Yeah, I mean it's a hell of a lot
2 years
better.
ago. 2 years ago, 1-7. Last year we were, I think, 2-5, 2-6,
something like that.
I don't know.
I thought we were 1-6 after Detroit because they got off to an 0-5 start, beat Minnesota, and then lost.
Yeah, then they beat Carolina on Thursday night.
Yep.
Yeah. So obviously it's nice to be playing. I mean, it's like. It's a low bar to clear to be playing like relevant, somewhat competitive football in October and probably into November at this point, assuming we win this game. But, I mean, that's where we are with this team. Is like the last 2 years were so bad early that we were pretty much out of it at this point. Eric famously was ready for the draft after week 2. So it's a nice thing to do to be 500. I mean, obviously the Falcons haven't played a murderer's row of teams. I mean, they've played the Bucks, and outside of those turnovers and stuff like that, late in the Bucks game, I mean, the Falcons played them close. But the Falcons haven't exactly been lighting the NFL on fire or doing anything. But what they have done that they haven't done since 2016, 2017 is they've started winning some of these games that they would have lost the last 2 years late in the game. They've been able to close out games. So
they were 0-8 or 0-7? One of those two last year in one-score games.
Yeah, I think it ended up being 2-8 like overall, which was almost the worst record ever. I think if they were 1-8,
we won 2?
That would have been. I think we did win 2. I think I went through and I was surprised to see that there was actually a second one. It depends.
One-score games?
Yeah,
if it's 8 points, then it's 2 wins to 8 losses. If it's 7 or less points, I believe it's 1-8. Because there was 1 8-point loss, I think. So it depends on if you define one score as 8 points, which I technically do. But
the Carolina game, the away game,
Yeah, that's the 8-point game.
Yeah.
No, I was thinking about 7 points.
Yeah, but either way, we haven't been good in one-score games. This is the message we're trying to send.
And meanwhile, they won the last two. Or the Jets, I don't know. Was the Jets technically a one-score win? I know they scored that garbage time touchdown.
Yeah. The Falcons only won by 7 against the Jets. Yeah.
But so that'll go down. I don't know, this is why some of those stats are a bit deceiving. That'll go down as a one-score win, but I mean, let's be honest, the Jets just scored in garbage time. But the Giants game and now the Dolphins game, that was 2 game-winning field goals off game-winning drives by the offense off fourth-quarter comebacks. So last year we had no fourth-quarter comebacks or game-winning drives.
Yeah. It's crazy.
The Broncos was a 7-point win technically. So there's your 1 point. There's your 1 point win.
Yeah,
and
we did
they only had one.
That's right.
They only had one win last year of one score.
I must have done my math wrong then, but that's okay. That's not surprising.
Lost to the Chargers by 3. Lost to the Chiefs by 3. Lost to the Bucs by 4. They should have had like
4 or 5. Yeah, lost
to the Saints by 5.
Lost to the Cowboys.
Last year was so weird though. It was like they went through the dictionary of like how can you possibly blow games at the end?
We were saying that. We was like, yo, this team is they're inventing new ways to lose every week.
It would have been very entertaining if I wasn't a Falcons fan to watch that though.
Yes, because it was like a comedy of errors every week. It was like, how are they going to blow it this time? And every time it was different. Like somehow
it's like watching the Lions this year.
Yeah,
it's embarrassing. It was embarrassing last year, even as a writer. Like it was embarrassing. It's like this is like they're a laughing stock.
Yeah, it drove Eric to ESPN.
Right out of our hands, straight into the corporate world. Way to go. Yeah, but that's what happens sometimes. You just abandon your friends for greener pastures, and I understand it. I won't say that I'm not hurt. No, I'm just kidding. Eric has been awesome and continues to come on the show for weeks, so I've got nothing to complain about. It's just a bit. It's just a bit. So, but yeah, I mean it's been weird seeing this team actually close out games and like. This game was kind of a turning point for me because I was like, all right, I'm fully expecting them to blow this. But also, I think maybe they might not blow it. And then they didn't blow it. And they put together that great game-winning drive at the end.
I definitely thought they were going to blow it.
I mean, in the group chat, I think we all thought they were going to blow it for sure.
Once Eric Harris failed on that tackle attempt on third down, I said, yeah, this is over. It's a wrap. There's no way.
I mean, I don't blame you. I certainly felt that way as well. But they didn't blow it. This is the second time now that they've, first was the Giants game, now this game, that they methodically executed a field goal drive at the end of the game to win.
But we kept saying, like, these were the demons that this new regime is going to have to get rid of. This is what they're going to have to distinguish when it comes to this franchise. Losing in those close games in that particular fashion. Like they're going to have to overcome that. And they've done it twice this year. And to be quite honest with you, it should have been 3 times because they should have beat Washington. But that's neither here nor there. But they're starting to learn. Like you guys pointed out, under Dan Quinn, they would have lost these games.
Right.
They would have lost to Miami. Yeah. They would have lost to the Giants. So they're learning.
Yeah, it's true. Like, and I think that was the biggest thing. And like we touched on it. It's hard to be like impartial and really like hands off of analysis when you're going through these losses. And, this team has won a handful of games the last couple of years. So like when they were losing these games at the beginning of the season and the team looked totally inept, it was easy. It was, maybe perhaps we were being a little harsh, on the team. I mean, I don't know that we were like super unfair or anything, but my takeaway just was always this team doesn't look prepared. They're not ready. Like, and that's an indictment, but it's...
I was just going to say, regarding that, I have a personal motto when it comes to the Falcons that this franchise as a whole deserves no benefit of the doubt. Like, and I will, until they prove otherwise, I will never give them the benefit of the doubt. I used to. And then, I watched all those blown leads firsthand, and I'm not saying I'm blaming Arthur Smith or Terry Font. No, that's ridiculous. They just got here. They've done a really good job actually so far. I'm just saying the Falcons franchise in general.
Like this is this was the attitude that I had after the Washington game. Like this is everybody knows around the league what the Falcons are famous for. Like their reputation is built on not just losing games, but losing games in incredible fashion.
And it's the most well-deserved reputation in sports. It's as deserved as like the 80s Bad Boys Pistons reputation was.
Yep. That's what they're identified as. So winning games is one thing, but these type of wins, no matter the opponent, to be quite honest with you, they stand out a little more. They stick a little more. Granted, yeah, it was the 1-win Dolphins. Sure. But again, we just pointed out, and we saw it last year, they would have lost this game.
Yeah.
And they didn't. They found a way to win. And again, it to me, it counted more as like a win and a half because of that aspect, because of the fact that, they blew a lead, but they won the game.
Yeah.
They found a way to win. So
I mean, it seemed like under Dan Quinn, especially last year and, 2019 to some extent, it was just when they'd blow the lead, and like you're going to blow leads in the NFL, even good teams do it from time to time. Like they just like mentally were destroyed, and it's like you knew they weren't going to come back. Like you knew there was no hope.
The Dallas game.
Yeah. And now with Arthur Smith, like they're still blowing some leads because the defense is obviously not all the way there, and we're definitely going to talk about that. But like they seem confident, like methodically. I mean that final drive against the Dolphins was textbook end of game drive. I mean, you couldn't dial it up any. I mean, the only way you could do it better, I guess, would be like, oh, you score a touchdown, as time expires, and you get a couple more points, and you don't have to worry about the chance of missing the kick. But
I've seen that argument in the past before by Matt Ryan haters that, oh yeah, he got them downfield, but it was actually Matt Bryant who scored the game winner. It's like, dude, shut the fuck up.
I mean, like Matt Bryant and Younghoe Koo, for that matter, like deserve credit, but like it doesn't take anything away from Ryan. Like I think you could argue that kicking the field goal is like arguably safer than going for a touchdown. Because you have much more control over the clock. You don't risk a turnover, So
I was saying it as they lined up for that kneel down, for those last couple kneel downs. They remember Todd Gurley well.
Oh yeah,
against the Lions last year.
Exactly.
I don't know if you guys.
I saw they were trying to let him score.
No.
Yeah.
After the timeout, Matt Ryan came out to the huddle. He looked at Cordero, and I saw him mouth the words. He said, "Go down." He damn near screamed it at him. He said, "Go down," and they gave
get
him,
the first and go down.
They gave him the ball. The Dolphins gave him the lane, and Cordero just kind of ran for 3 yards and just fell. Like he said, "Go down." Like
he understood the assignment.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And like if he wanted to run down to like the 5 and then fall down, like if they were really going to let him like almost score, like that's fine. But I get like it's safer the way he did it, and like I think it depends on your kicker. Maybe you could argue that just trying to get a touchdown is safer than risking a missed field goal. But I guess I would argue if you have a great kicker like Younghoe Koo,
and if you have a terrible defense like the Falcons do,
right? If you have a terrible defense, obviously, then there's no need. Like Younghoe Koo is almost automatic from that sort of range,
especially from like dead center, like 30. That's like an extra point.
Oh yeah,
and that's what Flores was upset about. Not the fact that they got in field goal position, but the fact that they were allowed to have pretty much the middle of the field. Like their defense, allowed them to have pretty much the middle of the field to get that kickoff. He was more upset about that than being in field goal position itself, to be honest with you. But to go back on your point, Kevin, Younghoe Koo is going to get the credit for the win here, but Matt Ryan completed 2 big passes for 53 yards to get the team in position. You can't kick a field goal unless you get the ball down there. So how you're going to avoid giving Matt Ryan any type of credit for this is mind-boggling. I don't understand. But
I mean, it's at least 50-50.
Right. No, it's not 50. It's like 80-20.
Yeah,
like
you're right. I'm just saying, like, if you're arguing that Koo deserves more credit than Ryan, you're dumb. So, like, I guess if you want to argue it's equal, maybe.
It's like don't get me. We all love Younghoe Koo. Like
young hero.
I expect my kicker to hit a 30-yard field goal like dead center. Like you're in the NFL for a reason.
Exactly.
But I didn't necessarily expect my rookie tight end to catch over the shoulder catch against an all pro corner.
From what I've seen, he's not a regular rookie tight end.
He's not a regular rookie tight end, but those are the plays that you need to make late in games. And again, Matt Ryan put the team in position to win it. So he definitely deserves some flowers.
Oh yeah. Those were some great throws. And it's like,
that second throw to Pitts, the one to get them into field goal range, that's one of the best throws I've ever seen Matt Ryan make. I've ever seen any quarterback make.
In the bucket.
Yeah. But it's like Pitts has such a gigantic catch radius that like he can, as long as you put it in his zip code, like he could probably get it. Like you don't, and that sort of downfield target, it makes the deep ball so much easier because it's like I don't have to fit this in this narrow window. Like I can be a little bit safer with this. I can have it float more out of bounds, that sort of thing. Because Kyle Pitts has the biggest arms that I've ever seen in my life, and he will just kind of go get it. And I think now that we're seeing that Matt Ryan trusts him probably more than any other player on the team at this point, considering what he did when it mattered most in crunch time. You need a couple plays to get in field goal range. He just chucked it up in the air for Pitts, and it was, credit to Matt Ryan. It was a great ball, but
Pitts didn't even have to go get it. It fell into the, it fell right into the breadbasket.
Exactly.
It was perfect.
Yeah.
Ideal pass. Even the one before that, he was bracketed by 4 defenders. And Ryan was able to fit that one in there. He threw a dart there. He put a lot of muscle behind that one. But yeah, this is and we're giving the credit. We're giving a lot of credit to Koo. We're giving some credit to Ryan. We're giving some to Pitts. But the coaching staff, Arthur Smith in particular, they deserve it a little bit as well, man, because that's the type of attitude that we've been pushing for a long time when it comes to having these opportunities, having these moments. Stay aggressive.
Yep.
I can live with Arthur Smith and that offense wanting to push the ball down the field and make some plays. And if they're not able to do it, okay, fine. But getting complacent late, I'm not with that. But that's the attitude that Arthur Smith is starting to develop, and I like it. I'm with it.
Yeah.
How many rookie tight ends go for 163 receiving yards in their sixth career game?
I mean, none that I've ever heard of, because he's the first one to do it.
How many rookie tight ends? Bro. How many tight ends? Not even rookie. How many tight ends can line up at X and Z receiver and run go routes
and Y and block
and completely burn last year's first team All Pro cornerback Xavier Howard?
All Pro corner.
They put double bracket coverage on Pitts with Xavier Howard doing it, and the Falcons didn't even hesitate to chuck that ball up.
Yeah. Matt was like, "Oh, that's what you're going to give him? Cool."
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I don't know. This is if you were a big Kyle Pitts supporter, we know George Costanza and
I was going to say, where's George tonight?
Yeah,
man?
George can crow a lot. But
George, if he's not here, he's probably going to watch the replay of this as the loyal viewer that he is. But yeah, like George, you deserve your victory laps, because I remember it was back in December, back in January, before Kyle Pitts was even talked about in the top 5. It was all about Kyle Pitts.
And I'll be the one to sit here and say I was the one that was like, man, no, let's not go that route.
Yeah, I mean, I think we were definitely trying to pump the brakes on it at least.
Let's not do that. But Pitts is a gem, man, and to have a playmaker like that, he's already scaring defenses, and he's only 21. He's only 6 games in, and defenses are already sticking all pro corners on him.
Yeah,
like it's
6 games in.
6 games in, they're already like, "Hey, man, first team all pro corner, go lock him up, please do it."
Imagine what it'll be like when the Falcons have an actual wide receiver 1 on the team.
An actual wide receiver 1, and then to be honest with you, that wasn't. There was a few times where Howard shadowed Pitts. There was one time in particular. There was a couple times actually where I saw Pitts line up in the slot, and he's covered one-on-one in man coverage against Xavier Howard. So it wasn't as if like, okay, he lined up on Howard's side. Like, no, the Dolphins were scheming ways to put their best defender on Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, exactly.
That tells you everything you need to know, man. That guy is doing the damn thing.
Yeah, and I think teams that have elite large safety, like Derwin James, like I think if anyone can match up with Kyle Pitts well, Derwin James is like one of the only guys that I can think of. Another elite athlete with size.
I think
But
Ramsey
like
could.
Ramsey, yeah, I mean, but
I
we're
think
talking like
Ramsey
the
could.
best cornerback in the NFL, who's also one of the biggest, and maybe the most athletic freak safety in the NFL, and Derwin
So
James.
that bodes the question: are there any linebackers in the NFL?
Maybe like
That
prime Luke Kuechly, but
They
I
they
mean,
may have there may be a defender this upcoming Sunday against the Panthers. I think Jeremy Chin
yeah,
is
Chin
definitely
is
going to see some time against Kyle Pitts, and we'll see.
yeah.
We all liked Jeremy Chin coming out of college,
Mm-hmm.
and I think he's going to have that opportunity to defend Pitts. So we'll see if he can go one-on-one with him. But
the
yeah,
Falcons were in a prime position to possibly draft Chin in the second round, but we traded that pick for Hayden Hurst.
Yep.
yeah.
Can't go back. Can't go back and do the right thing now, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, obviously, like Pitt's coming on, especially if they can demonstrate that the Falcons basically are like they're willing to chuck the ball on any play to Kyle Pitts. Like if we can get to where the teams are afraid of the deep ball and they have to play mostly cover 2 against the Falcons, I think then is when we'll actually see this running game take off. Because I don't think this running game is built to sort of run against stacked boxes or run against cover 1 fronts where you're seeing 7-8 guys in the box. I don't think this running game is ever really going to excel against that. But if you can force teams into cover 2 against you, I think Patterson, at that point, it's like you hit your blocks, Patterson makes one guy miss, and it's like a 12-yard gain. Because he just doesn't go down.
I don't think teams are really stacking the box now against the Falcons.
No, you saw it late by the Dolphins in particular, and that's when Patterson was ripping off those runs to close out the game. Is like they had to start dedicating safety help, and it was.
And the thing is that this is the foundational building that you make into creating a great consistent offense. It won't be, the Falcons aren't going to really win anything this year, but you can see the signs of that
potential.
Greatness. It's going to start with Kyle Pitts. We already have that. Then when you're talking about having a really good running back, not that Cordero isn't one, but in the future when you have your running back of the future, your wide receiver 1 of the future, which I'm still saying the Falcons don't have a wide receiver 1 on this roster.
Nope.
They have a solid wide receiver 2. But when all of that comes together and, behind a pretty good offensive line, which the offensive line looked solid against Miami, and
fourth in the league in sack rate allowed. 4th.
They've grown, and and even with the offensive line, when you're talking about that potential of Jalen Mayfield getting better, of Matt Hennessy getting much better, you're talking about the ingredients, some of which are already there, and now you're mixing it up. And the guy doing the mixing is an offensive mastermind in Arthur Smith, and now you have a recipe for success. Now you have your offense that's as good as possibly the Falcons in 2016, maybe one day.
Yep.
Here's what I'm seeing from this offense, and I think this offense is going to evolve in a certain direction because of what Arthur Smith has around him this year. He didn't really have, of course, the scheme last year and in previous years in Tennessee was predicated around Derrick Henry. We get it; it was built around that. But what he didn't have was a collection of players that are able to be effective in various spots. That's what he didn't have there. And I think that's the direction this scheme is going to end up going, not only this year, but in years to follow. I think he's going to build a scheme. He's going to put together a scheme where he has 3 or 4 players on the field at once that's going to have defenses thinking like, okay, where's this guy going to line up? Let alone what route they're going to run, which way they're going to run. Like he's like that. That is the direction I think this offense is going. I think he's starting to fall in love with that idea a little bit. Having Cordero out there, having Kyle Pitts that can line up anywhere. I would not be surprised if in the draft they go after those type of positionless skill players that they can just put wherever they want to put. And I think that's where he's going to build the offensive round.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And like that in itself is really exciting because I think with Dirk Cutter, and I know we had a donation from Solaire who was saying that about the choking, Dirk Cutter, Solaire with the $1, by the way. Thank you, Solaire. He said Dirk Cutter had a big part in that. His play calling in the third and fourth quarter, was a big reason why they blew those leads. The play calling now in the third and fourth quarter has been a lot better. Arthur also tends to adjust late in the game, unlike Dirk. That's been nice to see. And I totally agree with that. I think the end of game play calling has been better, especially in these last 3 games as opposed to the first 3. But it's I'm just really excited about the type of players that Arthur Smith might get and going after these guys, kind of like a guy like Kadarius Toney, for instance. For Dirk Cutter, it's I wouldn't have wanted Kadarius Toney for Dirk Cutter because I feel like he just would have made him a deep threat or something like that, or just made him a screen guy. But I think if you move Toney around, use him a little bit as a running back, use him a little bit as a wide receiver, use him for some gadgety stuff, that is where you unlock his potential. And I think Arthur Smith is showing that he can use these unique players like Cordarrelle Patterson, who no one else seemed to ever be able to figure to use. He's able to do that, and turn these guys into actual weapons to utilize them correctly. Right. And that is maybe the most refreshing thing about all this is we're actually seeing intelligent usage of offensive personnel. Right. And I think to me, the big question now is he's got to find a way to make Calvin Ridley a bigger part of this offense. And whether that's, you have to be able to utilize that player, that talent.
Does he have to?
I think not long term, but this year, you've got to figure out a role for Ridley that's going to work better than what he has now. Yeah, for this year.
But I don't want to go. I don't want to go down that road though, because it's it seems as if Arthur may have to really adjust a good portion of the offense just to fit Ridley and find his comfort zone. And I'm like that. He shouldn't have to do that as a play caller, as pretty much the architect of the scheme. He shouldn't have to do that. He shouldn't have to modify too much,
exactly,
just so Ridley can feel comfortable.
It's more like altering the sort of plays that Ridley is being called upon to do. So not necessarily changing the scheme, but using Ridley as a flanker for Pitts. Letting Ridley run more deep stuff, running more of these intermediate, that the stuff that's we don't need Ridley to be running those sorts of short crossers and getting annihilated on those balls. We don't need him to be that contested catch receiver anymore. We have Kyle Pitts.
But that's what he was. Those short crossers is what he was stellar at Alabama, and that's that's how Sarkisian used him in his rookie year.
Yeah, and there has to be, he has to be able to come down with some of those. There's no doubt, but
he has to.
But he was one of the best deep receivers in the NFL last year. So I think if you have the threat of Pitts on one side, you should be able to dial up some deep stuff for Ridley too. I think you adjust his role, and that's the only thing I need to see now from him. All right, there's 2 things. I would like to see the running game be more consistently productive, but I think the switch to Patterson as the primary runner will accomplish some of that. But we need to see a better utilization of Calvin Ridley, just because that's what you have. We need to at least make it work this year, and maybe that's not an ideal role going forward, but there's not anyone else out there to be your top receiver. Tajay Sharp has shown that he's a reliable possession guy. Maybe you have him run more of those possession routes than Ridley. Russell Gage, also your primary slot guy, but we need to be able to deploy Ridley somewhat effectively.
This is a lesson in why you always need to give new coaches and new regimes probably at least 3 years, because he's working with all of Dirk Cutter's stuff right now, all of Dan Quinn's roster. It will take at least 2 more off seasons, I would say, before we see a roster full of, Arthur Smith guys, full of guys that he's handpicked. And,
right.
Even if the Falcons came out 1-5, 0-6, whatever, it was kind of ridiculous after that Washington game. Don't get me wrong, we were all criticizing Arthur Smith for his conservative play calling against Washington. We spent 45% of the post-game show just harping on that. Mm-hmm. It was still rather ridiculous reading people saying that, we need to fire Arthur Smith. That's a bit short-sighted. We won't really see this team hitting the potential that it could, I would say, under Arthur Smith, I would say until at least year 3 of the Arthur Smith regime and of the Arthur Smith experience, because like you guys said, he needs to get in some of his more big-bodied wide receivers, maybe bring in some of his own offensive linemen, but the offensive line looks pretty good right now. We'll see where it goes with that, but yeah, his own running back, other than Cordero Patterson, like what we need to give him a couple more draft classes.
Yeah. And like Brandon Brass raises a good point, with the $3 tip. Thank you, Brandon. He says, at this point, only at this point, I'm assuming he's talking about, because there's a lot of football left this season before we'd have to make this decision. But at this point, if someone came with a good offer for Ridley for 2022, they'd be willing to obviously take on the 5th-year option. Do you trade Ridley for like a 2nd-round pick?
Yes.
At this point.
Yes.
I would.
Because the financial part of it is a bigger part than I think people realize too. Like, we need the money pretty bad. Like,
and that contract is going to expire after the 5th year. Calvin Ridley is going to be looking for elite wide receiver money.
Yeah.
If they don't make the trade, I will. Yes.
Yeah.
Give me a second for him. Absolutely.
Oh yeah. All right. Let me get our guest is coming in here so we can pivot to some Panthers talk. But maybe we can ask him about his Calvin Ridley thoughts as well, because I know Brian is a follower of all things NFC South. Hey, Brian, what's up?
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Happy to have you tonight. How you doing?
I'm a Panthers fan, so things could be better, but
Yeah,
they were probably really good in the middle of September, though.
Always.
Yeah. Well, this is definitely something I wanted to bring up to you, and it's like, I feel like the Panthers and the Falcons are just on the complete opposite track. Like, the Falcons, there was nothing but depression the first 3 weeks. It was like 2 blowout losses. Nothing looked like it was going well. The team was unprepared, but they followed it up, with three pretty good outings. And the Panthers started hot, looked like, oh wow, maybe this Sam Darnold experiment actually it wasn't bad, and then just fell off a cliff. So we're 2 teams going in different directions, but with basically the same record. And, we were just talking about Calvin. Like, our biggest question right now as Falcons fans at this point, 3-3, we're like, oh, we need to use Calvin Ridley more. Why isn't he being used more? But I know for you, as a Panthers fan, the questions start and end with Sam Darnold, right? I mean, where are you on that sort of situation?
Oh, Sam Darnold. He's really difficult to read right now. The first 3 weeks of the season, Sam Darnold looked like he was rejuvenated, revitalized, like moving along in his development. You thought that he was a better quarterback than what he looked like with the Jets. And then over the last 3 weeks, he's just kind of devolved, I guess. And this past week was especially egregious with him. Watching him play, he misses a lot of checkdowns recently. The Panthers offense couldn't really move the ball that well, and against the Giants, and even in the previous week, and a lot of it came down to just bad decision making. And even Dan Orlovsky, a guy that we like to toast on Twitter because his takes are generally not great, he went out and evaluated Sam Darnold recently, and he even mentioned that his fundamentals are not right. His dropbacks are not right, where the timing is thrown off on the play, and all of that has been very, very abundantly clear just watching the Panthers play. It's not 100% Darnold's fault, but he's definitely regressing right now, and it's one of those things where it's like, okay, is he going to turn it around against a team like the Falcons, or is he just going to continue to go backwards? And it's very frustrating.
I'm sure it is, and it's like, honestly, the Falcons pass rush is a travesty at this point, especially with Dante Fowler on IR. When you have a guy with 2 sacks that's your shining star as a pass rusher, and he's out, this is not a great situation. So I know you mentioned the offensive line, and for me as an outside observer of the Panthers, that was my biggest concern about the team going in, was this offensive line is not gonna work, like, on a season-long level. And has that basically been how it's played out in Carolina? Has that been kind of the Achilles heel of the offense?
Yeah, it's definitely been the offensive line for sure. I think part of it is that Darnold is not a quarterback who can perform well behind a bad offensive line, because there are quarterbacks who have been sacked and pressured more than him, like Ryan Tannehill, for example, and they've obviously been successful. So it's not 100% just on the offensive line, but the offensive line is definitely a major problem. Cam Irving at left tackle is probably their best guy, and that's not good. Yeah. They finally put Brady Christensen, their third-round pick at offensive tackle, at left tackle last week, and he did okay, but towards the end of the game when it was clear the Panthers were going to pass the ball, he was very bad. They tried putting Taylor Moton at left tackle at one point. That didn't work out well because he looks like an average offensive tackle, and for a guy of Moton's caliber at right tackle, you really don't want that.
Yeah.
And the interior has just been a complete shit show. It's not good. They really, I don't see a particular combination of this offensive line where you can say, oh, if they put these guys in the right position, they'll be successful. They'll protect him right. Nope. I think there's going to be at least 2 guys on the line every week that are going to be really bad.
Yeah. And it's like, again, this is like we're trending because I feel like the offensive line early in the season, it wasn't great for the Panthers, but it was functional. And the Falcons, meanwhile, we had, Jalen Mayfield famously having like a single-digit pass blocking grade in week 1. But since then, it's been a lot better. You mentioned, some young guys on your line with Brady Christensen. The other signing was Cam Irving. I mean, is there anyone that's kind of playing above expectations or playing to expect? I mean, Taylor Moton obviously is very good, but everybody else, I mean, is it really that bad everywhere else?
Pretty much. Matt Paradis was their big free agent signing, or one of them a few years ago at center, and he's just looked functionally not strong, both in pass protection and run offense. Left guard's been a revolving door between Dennis Daly, Pat Elflein. None of them have been very good. Right guard's been kind of the same way. John Miller was like okay last year, but he's been battling injury all year, and he hasn't been good ever since he started having injury problems. And obviously, as I said, left tackle, not good, not ideal.
Yeah, so. Cam Irving, mediocre interior offensive lineman, putting him at left tackle certainly wouldn't have been my instinct.
And the sad part is he's the best left tackle they've had performance-wise.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I always thought he was like an interesting player when he came out. But I think it's like taking a sort of mediocre offensive lineman and being like, be our left tackle. That generally doesn't work out super well. So that's, unfortunately kind of on expectation. Adnan, Eric, do you guys have any questions for Brian? I feel like I'm hogging our great guest tonight. So you guys got anything you'd like to ask?
Well, you mentioned that Darnold is missing a lot of his checkdowns. So my question initially that I had for you before you made that statement was, could you pretty much aim the downward trend of his play due to the injury of Christian McCaffrey, or do you think it might be something a little more outside of that?
It's a really interesting question because it's something that we've been trying to kind of figure out, like CSR as a whole, the staff, really. He played very well with McCaffrey, and he was throwing McCaffrey the ball a lot, and McCaffrey was still touching the ball like 30 times a game, which is, not ideal.
Right.
And ever since McCaffrey came out, he stopped making those check down throws. Like there were at least 3 times on Sunday where I saw Chuba Hubbard open on third down in the flat, where he would catch the ball, easily get 2 or 3 yards, get the first down, no problem. And that's a throw we saw him make to Christian McCaffrey several times over the first 3 weeks of the season. And he's just not doing that. And it's kind of like, it almost reminds me of Cam Newton in his first 2 years with Carolina. Like, I feel like he's trying too hard now that he doesn't have that safety valve in Christian McCaffrey, where he's trying to make plays where it's like an overcorrection from Teddy Bridgewater, because Bridgewater was more than happy to take those throws every time they were given to him, even if they weren't going to get the first down. And Darnold, on the other hand, at least over the last 3 weeks, he's just not taking them, and a lot of times I think he's just not seeing them, but you could question that as a functional problem with him as a quarterback, but he was taking them over the first 3 weeks. So it's really weird. It's just, I don't quite understand it. I don't know if it's just him not being comfortable, if he's getting the yips all of a sudden. I think it's more of a complex issue than just that McCaffrey's not there. I think there's a lot more to it than that.
Would that also explain why Robbie Anderson is struggling so much all of a sudden?
I really can't explain why Anderson's struggling as bad as he is. Like, there have been a lot of throws to Anderson where they were kind of awkward, but you'd still expect a wide receiver of his caliber to catch them. I honestly feel like this is one of those situations where I don't know if the Falcons have had a receiver like this in a long time, because I know Julio wasn't this way, but when a receiver gets, I guess, in his head and he wants the ball more, the offense schemes it up to get him the ball more, and I think that's kind of working to their detriment because he's not confident right now.
We kind of went through that with Roddy White in 2015.
Okay, well, that makes sense. Yeah, like, I think that's what it is, because, like, he's been targeted, I think, more than any receiver on the Panthers roster at this point. And if he's not, he's really close to DJ Moore. But there was one week where against the Vikings, he had like 12 targets, I want to say, and he only caught 3 of them, maybe. Like that's you can blame Darnold for probably 5 or 6 of those throws, but the rest of them, like, come on.
In a shootout.
Yeah.
In a shootout game like that was, I'm pretty sure that stood out to you. Like, everybody was, yards were generated fairly easy, and Robbie wasn't able to even put much of an imprint on the game.
And awkward throws, I understand, and there have been awkward throws as a result of Sam Darnold's fundamentals, but at the same time, like, Robbie, you're getting paid more than any receiver on the roster right now. Like, It's just very weird. Like, I think it's a combination of Robbie Anderson being frustrated that he's not making those catches, and now he's kind of like getting in his own head, because that's something that does happen with wide receivers, and the fact that Sam Darnold's trying too hard, and it's just causing major issues at this point.
So I want you to touch a little bit on the returning guys that the Panthers may see come back this week from injuries. Some real key names there on the defensive side of the ball.
Well, Shaq Thompson actually has been, over the first few weeks when he was healthy, he was playing like the elite linebacker you would expect with a contract like his. He was very good. Very, very good. I was very impressed with him. I wasn't expecting anything like that from him. Without him, they had basically Jermaine Carter, who really was not what I would call a high-end starter at the linebacker position, and he was basically the only one aside from depth guys that were playing just because they had to. So Shaq Thompson, obviously very big there. I'm not 100% sure if Stephon Gilmore is going to play or not.
Please, God, don't let him play. Please.
I mean, even if he does, I'm not 100% sure what he's going to look like, because he hasn't played since December of last year and he's barely practiced. But that would be big for the defense, because AJ Boye is what I would call like a passable veteran presence. So Juston Burris is one that I think that is very underrated. He played very well last year, I would say, given the circumstances when the defense was very, I don't want to say bad, but they had a really hard time with third downs and whatnot and getting off the field. And I think he actually played really well, but it was hard to see that because the defense as a whole was just not getting the job done. So I think that's a big one as well for Carolina, just on Burris. Miles Hartsfield is another guy that many people probably haven't even heard of if they're not Carolina Panthers fans, but he was highly rated with Carolina as far as being a multiple type defensive back. So him potentially being back is big as well. So this could potentially be Carolina's best defensive presence since, I would say, maybe week 3.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, that's the thing, and it's kind of going to be strength on strength in this game because, the Falcons' offense is starting to get humming, and this is going to be the best defense they've had to face by far. Probably the best pass rush, probably, if they've got some of these players coming back, the best all-around defense. Kyle Pitts obviously is coming on, and it's like at this point, we're like, okay, well, who is he going to struggle with now? Because over the last few games, he's basically exerted his will. So for you as a Panthers fan, what is your sort of idea about trying to take away Kyle Pitts, who is basically the vast majority of the Falcons passing offense at this point, seeing as, Calvin Ridley's been kind of quiet since he came back, has, not quite to the level of Robbie Anderson in terms of disappointment, but certainly not the impact we were expecting. And if you had Calvin Ridley in fantasy, I'm sure you're also equally upset. But, what is your sort of game plan to limit Pitts at this point as a Panthers fan?
This is the first game where I really miss J.C. Horn, because he was playing outside, inside, shadowing whoever. Like, I think J.C. Horn would have actually been the guy that I would have relegated to covering Kyle Pitts, but obviously he's not playing. At this point, I think it's Jeremy Chin. I think that Jeremy Chin's the guy you line up on him just because he can play everywhere. And I don't even know if that'll work, but he's been very good this year, flying a little bit under the radar just because Carolina's defense as a whole has been a lot more productive from top to bottom. But if Atlanta wants to succeed, I'd say they max protect. They get 2 or 3 receivers out there and put them on an island. And I don't know if Carolina can stop Kyle Pitts. I don't know if I can trust Jeremy Chin to be manned up on him the entire game and succeed.
Yeah, that's funny because I think Eric said he would put Jeremy Chin on him as well and just see what happens.
I just feel like if you're gonna go that route with man coverage with anyone on that Panthers defense, Chin is probably the best option. He's too physical. He's too big for Dante Jackson, and I don't. And no one else on that, at least on the back half, is athletic enough, in my opinion, that can cover him. And I think Chin is the best defender that they have. And Chin has been playing great. Okay.
Yeah.
Brian is being a little facetious here a little bit. Like Chin has been outstanding, in my opinion, the past couple of years since he's been a Panther. And, I think he is definitely the one defender to worry about going into this game because of his versatility.
Yeah. And I think Jeremy Chin was one of our favorite prospects that year.
Definitely.
We all sort of, are sad that the Falcons didn't get him, but
along with Brian Burns.
Yes. Brian Burns also. You guys just took both the guys we really wanted, and the Falcons, took other players.
Brian Burns should be a Falcon right now, but he's not. And he's probably going to get about 2 sacks on Sunday. Cool.
Probably, because Caleb McGarry will be back, and we all know Brian Burns is Caleb McGarry's biggest nemesis.
But see, the Panthers they're just showered with pass rushers this year, because if they don't want to line up an athletic edge rusher like Brian Burns on that side, they can always just stick Hassan Reddick, who is probably equally as athletic. Yeah, this is going to be fun. This is going to be fucking fun. God damn it.
At least Chris Lindstrom's really good. That's who we passed on Burns for. He's looked like a top 5 guard in the NFL this year. Mm-hmm. We chose Hayden Hurst over Jeremy Chin.
Yeah, that one stings a little bit more. Now maybe Hurst can carve out a little. Hurst needs to start doing something, because we need to get that comp pick.
We're damn sure going to need Hurst lining up in line to cover these edge rushers here.
I did have a question. Yeah. I did have a question for Brian. What is your ideal scenario for the Panthers this year, as a whole in the season? Are you thinking possibly a wild card run, just Sam Darnold looking better and possibly looking like a quarterback of the future? What is it?
I don't see wild card in their future, to be honest. I think that NFL offenses have figured out their defense, because as athletic as Brian Burns and Hassan Reddick are, teams that are really devoted to running the ball, who have a decent offensive line, have been abusing this defense. Over the first few weeks, I think they confused some offensive fronts, where now that there's some film out there, they're able to run the ball a little bit better. This defense actually kind of reminds me of 2019, in that they had a really good set of pass rushers, but it didn't matter that once teams decided, okay, well, we're going to run the ball down your throats, there really wasn't anything they could do. And Shaq Thompson being back is going to be big for that, obviously. I really do like their defensive line, but with the way Matt Ryan's playing, I could see Matt Ryan blowing them up this week. And I just think that going 500 is, if they can go over 500, that's a win for them. But overall, I think they're going to be looking for the quarterback of the future again next year. I just don't see it with Sam Darnold at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember. I know, I'm sure we talked about it on Twitter at some point, but like, where were you on that whole scenario to begin with? Were you like okay with the Darnold move? Were you wanting them to take a quarterback? Were you still wanting them to take a quarterback when one was there at 8?
Before you answer that, how I looked at it, Brian, was I think the team was all in on Fields. I guess they felt like they were not going to have a clear shot at Fields. So it was more so like, hey, we got to get some type of quarterback this offseason. So they took Darnold, and Tepper saw Fields drop, and Tepper was like, holy shit. I didn't expect that to happen.
Well, to start the question off, I actually wanted them to pick J.C. Horn. He was my guy.
Okay.
So they selected the person that I expected them to pick. I don't really know what the quarterback situation. I know Carolina was in play to try and get up to the 3rd overall pick. So they definitely had somebody in their crosshairs that they wanted there.
Right.
I feel like Justin Fields was someone where they thought about him, but there were also other players. I know that Penei Sewell was also there. Like, I think Penei Sewell would have been the pick had the Lions not taken him. I think that it was one of those things where they were willing to take the shot on Justin Fields, but he wasn't the guy where they thought, we have to take this guy if he's there. And with the way Fields has been performing for Chicago, I can kind of see why that they were thinking that, though obviously with quarterbacks, it can take a few years to mature and really progress. So
I don't think Nagy's helping the cause there in Chicago.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, I mean, with the same, he would have I think Joe Brady's a lot better in terms of an offensive coordinator than Matt Nagy, but in terms of the other struggles like the offensive line and stuff, you could see Fields also struggling in Carolina this year.
Yeah, I mean, after the draft, there was a lot of faith in this front office and coaching staff. Like, okay, they know what they're doing. Like, they made a lot of good trades. They picked up a lot of talent. And then, like, as the on-field product came to be, it's like, okay, there's some kind of evaluation gap here, whether it's between Rule or his scouting team or Scott Fitterer. They picked up these offensive linemen, Pat Elflein and Cam Irving, thinking that, okay, we can field a somewhat okay offensive line with these guys if we don't get the ones we want in the draft. And obviously that hasn't been the case. So
yeah,
there are some questions there. And the other thing, speaking of Joe Brady, like, it's hard to figure out exactly who is at fault with why the offense has struggled so badly over the last 3 weeks. Because Darnold hasn't played well, but there's also been calls where it's like, why are you putting Darnold in that position in these times? So I don't know. As far as the Darnold trade goes, I actually was really supportive of it. I was like, okay, well, they can put him in a good situation for him, but I was not expecting them to have him throwing the ball 35 times a game, 40 times a game behind this offensive line. So that's not conducive to a success for Sam Darnold to me. So had I known that, I would have been a little more upset about the trade.
Yeah. And like, what about the guarantee, like the picking up the option? Cause that to me, like the trade, it's like, okay, I get it. He's a young quarterback with potential. Maybe you think the Adam Gase stank and all that, you can fix it. But like, I guess I don't get picking up the option. I just feel like the option is so expensive
before you even play the game.
Yeah, and it's like the option is so expensive. Like, you're really not saving that much. Like, if Darnold plays well, you're going to extend him either way, more than likely. So, like, I guess, what are your thoughts on them picking up the option? Is that the one thing maybe you regret about it, or do you actually understand it?
I think they thought they were going to be better than they are.
Yeah,
when they did that, because in theory, if they go 3-0 to start the season, which they did, and then they win 2 of their next 3 games, and they're 5-1, you're sitting there like, okay, well, Sam Darnold on the option next year, that's great. We don't have to pay him a giant contract. Where now he's regressed so horribly in 3 games after that first 3 games, because in those first 3 games, it all looked justified. Everything looked justified.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But then it just went so far downhill. And if he can turn it around and maybe win, half of the games they have left, okay, you could justify giving him that option. I mean, teams like the Vikings gave Kirk Cousins a giant contract.
Oh
and
my God, yeah.
it wasn't like he was worth that at the time based on his record.
Fully guaranteed.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's one of those things where it was a strategic gamble for them because I don't think they thought they would be in position to draft a high-end quarterback in the next drafts. And they may not be. Like, for all we know, they'll somehow manage to win 7 more games or 6 more games, and they won't even be in the conversation for that kind of player. And then they'll be talking to guys like Aaron Rodgers or, God, hopefully not, but Deshaun Watson in the offseason. So, you know.
Yeah, it hurts things when you've got like if Darnold doesn't get better, the 5th-year option becomes a massive problem because it's like, oh crap, now we're paying this guy $18 million to not be our quarterback, and obviously $18 million isn't as bad as $30 million down the drain, but certainly not great. But
no.
There's a lot of football left. There's a lot of football,
especially where, like he just pointed out, where you're dealing with you could be coming into an offseason where you may have a guy like Aaron Rodgers out there, and that $18 million could definitely come in handy to entice him to possibly sign aboard. But again, the first 3 games, it looked very justifiable, to be honest with you. Sam Darnold was playing the best football. It was unquestionably the best 3-game stretch of his career.
Yeah.
But I still think the Panthers, they hit a funk this point in the season, but I still like their chances because of the defensive side of the ball and the additions that they've made. I do like getting a guy like Henderson. I think Gilmore is going to be a difference maker, of course, on the back end. And, we saw it, back in 2015, this Panthers team, they went 15-1 that year. And to be quite honest with you, Cam and the offense got the shine, but it was really that defense that really, in my opinion, that kind of sort of, put them in that placement. So I think they're going to be, I think they can turn things around. But if they do, it's going to be on the defense. But my question for you, Brian, is going into this Falcons game, Sam Darnold aside, what's your biggest concern on that Panthers roster going into this game? Is it that secondary, or is it, trying to match up? Linebackers trying to match up with Kyle Pitts? Is it the offensive line? What's your biggest concern?
I think the offensive line is the easy answer, so I'm not going to use that. I actually am a little concerned about the defensive line against the Falcons' offensive line because Matt Ryan's been playing out of his mind recently. And the Panthers' defense, even though they've been not bad, they haven't been able to generate pass rushes easily recently. And I think the Cowboys kind of showed they created the film okay, this is how you defend the Panthers' pass rush. And I think the Falcons will probably adopt the same mindsets and be like, okay, well, we're going to max protect and have 2 or 3 receivers out there, so go cover them. And a guy like Kyle Pitts, scary because, he might be matched up with Shaq Thompson. He might be matched up with Jeremy Chin. Even Hayden Hurst, if Jeremy Chin's full-time deployed against Kyle Pitts, okay, so you got Justin Burris or a nickel corner defending against Hayden Hurst, so that's not good. And obviously, even though Calvin Ridley's had some drop problems, he's roasted Dante Jackson in the past, so...
yeah.
So it's one of those things where,
and Cordero could be an issue as well.
I think it's possible Carolina matches up extremely well against this Falcons offense, and they have more of a stalemate. But it's also possible the Falcons kind of just take off against them, where they can't really catch up. Because C.J. Henderson, I think he's possibly going to be a good starter for them in the future, but I don't think you can expect him to be first-round level cornerback anytime soon for them.
Well, is it the run defense that's really the Achilles heel? Because the Falcons honestly haven't run the ball very well overall. But yeah, what do you think about that?
The run defense has not been the Achilles heel in the beginning of games. It's more so that when they've been on the field for so long, eventually the other teams just start taking them out. I think the Cowboys were the only team that really enforced their will from start to finish against them. Shaq Thompson being back again will be a big deal there. I just think the Falcons' offensive line is pretty good and might be one of the top 2 they've faced, and that's where I see the issue lying.
How about that?
That's high praise. I mean, and it's funny because I feel like, well, if you look at their sack rate allowed, they're fourth. Like they've been a great pass protecting O-line, and they've faced a lot of really good defensive lines. So they haven't faced a lot of really good overall defenses, but they've faced, Tampa Bay, Philadelphia, Washington's pass rush still really good, even if the rest of the defense is trash. Even the Giants have a good interior, so it's like the Falcons' offensive line, I think, is legit in terms of pass protecting, but they haven't been consistently good run blocking. The only one who's really been able to be good running the ball is Cordarrelle Patterson, who seems to have actually taken over the full-time sort of starting job. So I'm interested to see
Mike Davis. Rip.
Yeah, I know the Mike Davis revenge game. I was looking forward to it, but he's still going to get reps.
He had a revenge game against Atlanta next year. Maybe he turns the table this time. This year
he was mainly used as a blocker for the most part last game. Yeah. He had 4 carries, 0 catches.
He got that 1 3rd and 3 that was really impressive. So props to him for that.
Was late in the fourth quarter, and then he hobbled off the field right after that. So.
Yeah, definitely he's been the victim of some poor run blocking.
Yeah, and the thing with Davis is I think he's a lot more dependent on the blocking than Patterson. Patterson's just sort of like a beautiful stallion that just kind of
Patterson glides out there.
Yeah, he just kind of like it doesn't even matter. Like if there's no blocking, he's just gonna plunge ahead for 1, and if there is blocking, he's gonna get like 12 yards. So it's like in a certain light, like it's honestly not Mike Davis's fault, and I feel bad for him. But Patterson is just having such a great year, like better than I think anyone could have ever predicted. That it's like you can't like sit Patterson. You're like, all right, you just get out there. Like we joked about Patterson possibly being like this. Oh, he's like discount Derrick Henry. Look at his measurables and his athletic testing, and like that was a joke. But like he's playing like closer to that than I think anyone could have possibly predicted, and that's been a lot of fun for Falcons fans. But honestly, Brian, as an outsider, what is your sort of takeaway from the Falcons? I mean, do you think, as their record shows, they're sort of like a average team that's ascending, or do you think that they've kind of benefited from a pretty weak schedule thus far?
They remind me of the 2011-2012 Panthers a little bit, in the fact that their quarterback is playing extremely well. They have a lot of good weapons on offense, but the defense is kind of
a disaster,
fucking them over a little bit.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
The thing that's nice for them is that they have Matt Ryan and not a quarterback who's in his first and second year.
Right.
So he can actually like pull those wins out as he did last week. But yeah, I mean, I'm this Panthers team just has me kind of flustered because like I kind of expected them to regress, but not to this degree. Like I could see it being a really close, fun game. I could also see the Falcons completely destroying the Panthers, but I could also see the Panthers just like turning it on and like winning 35-3. So it's just very hard to predict.
Correct. Yeah, I was going to say, correct me if I'm wrong though, but I think you're at a place right now where you're not quite sure what Panthers team you're going to see on a given Sunday, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It's very hard to predict because they have so much talent on both sides of the ball. They really do. Right. I mean, aside from the offensive line, the offense is pretty good. Defense as a whole is pretty good, especially if Stephon Gilmore's on the field. But sometimes they put it together, sometimes they don't. It's just very, very odd.
I just honestly feel we're going to see the Sam Darnold of the first 3 weeks. I don't have a whole lot of faith in his defense, especially his defensive line getting any type of pressure on Darnold. And I don't like the matchups on the back end. I mean, sure, AJ Terrell may be able to shadow DJ Moore to an extent, but I don't like the matchup of Robbie Anderson against Fabian Moreau. I really don't. I don't like the matchup of even having guys like Ian Thomas out there and the tight end, the rookie tight end.
Tommy Tremble.
Tommy Tremble. I don't like the matchups there either. And I think that's going to be the difference. I honestly believe we're going to see early season Sam Darnold, and he's going to show up.
Yeah.
I will say the Falcons are gonna get pressure, so don't worry about that.
I wouldn't bet on that.
No. You haven't watched this offensive line like I have. They're not good.
We thought the same thing against Miami, and they were really not able to put a whole lot of heat on Tua. Tua had his way to an extent. I mean, he threw for 4 touchdowns. And the picks that he threw, those were really the only times I actually remembered anybody getting close to him. So
yeah, without Dante Fowler, the Falcons have nothing.
They're
on the
missing
edge,
Dante Fowler a lot right now.
Yeah, it's bad. But yeah, I mean, it's a case of the movable object versus the stoppable force with that one. So we'll see how that goes.
That's fair.
But yeah, I mean, I guess to me, I do think it's probably going to be a close game. I mean, I guess it just depends. Like, if Darnold struggles, you could see the Falcons. I don't think the Falcons are going to just run away on offense or anything like that. But, it's kind of like what happened against the Giants. It's like the Giants didn't, take control of that game until late. But it was just, the defense was – the Panthers' defense was playing well. But it's like they're not a defense that's just going to shut a team out with the offense being terrible. So eventually, Falcons score – and then it's like, can Sam Darnold answer? And, the Falcons defense and the Giants defense, neither one's very good. So
how short of a leash you think Darnold has this week?
I think that he's, unless it gets to the point of the Giants game where it's just out of hand, I think that he's still going to be playing.
Okay. So you don't think if they're down 2 scores early on and he has a bad first couple of drives that they're just going to throw PJ Walker in there? I mean, because I felt like it was significant for him to get benched last week against the Giants, with it still being such a close defensive slugfest, and they inserted Walker, and of course things didn't improve from that point on, but it just made me feel like, okay, well, he's going to go into the Falcons game with probably a very, very short leash. Like, they're not going to be hesitant to pull him again.
I mean, based on watching the game against the Giants, it was very clear Carolina wasn't making any progress.
Right.
I don't think it was as much about, Sam Darnold playing bad as much as it was just that Matt Rule wanted to pull him out before he continued to have his ego and, physical body abused in that game.
Yeah.
So I don't think that he would be benched in the first half. I think
okay,
if the Falcons were to say get to the second half with a 24-point lead, then I could say, yeah, let's see PJ Walker, sure. But
let's make it 25. I mean, they're good with 25-point leads.
I'd rather it be 24. I'd rather 24. Yeah.
I don't think it was as much about Darnold playing bad as much as it was just that Rule wanted to just get him out of there because the game was lost at that point.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and I do think this is a good opportunity for Darnold to have a bounce back game, because the Falcons have basically allowed every quarterback they've played to have a great game, except Zach Wilson. They actually didn't make Zach Wilson look great, but
Heineke looked like an all-pro.
But the Falcons are getting back some secondary pieces. Apparently it seems like AJ Terrell is going to play. Fabian Moreau is going to play. Maybe Avery Williams will be back. They're starting to use Richie Grant more. So, maybe the Falcons defense is a little bit better, but the pass rush has been really bad. So, we'll see if they can, they're probably going to try to blitz Carolina. And
I'll be out there on Sunday. Fuck that. Somebody got to get out there.
Eric, strap up, buddy. Get out there and rush the passer. But yeah, I do think it's going to be close, and I think these divisional matchups are always going to be more spicy than they probably would be if you looked at it from a neutral perspective. So I definitely don't expect it to be any sort of blowout, but I do think that the Panthers defense is good, so I don't expect the Falcons offense to just have a field day or anything. So it's really going to come down to, can Sam Darnold turn it on and get a good game going here? Can he break out of the funk, or is he going to make some backbreaking mistakes? And I think the Falcons offense is good enough to capitalize now. They're much better in the red zone than they ever were under Dirk Cutter. They've shown that they're, pretty responsible with the football, that they're going to generally do the right things if they're in the right position. So, this is a team I think that will capitalize on mistakes more than the Falcons teams of the past few years. But I don't think any of us are really at a high trust level with anything to do with Atlanta sports at this point. But I do think it'll be a good game, a good divisional game. So, Yeah, I mean, how are you feeling in terms of predictions, Brian? Do you think the Panthers break out of the funk in this one?
I think they do, but I think they still lose.
Okay, so Darnold has a good game against Atlanta, but it's just a narrow sort of loss at the end or something like that.
Well, like Darnold, it was very clear that Darnold was trying too hard against the Giants, and he mentioned a few times in his press conferences that like his footwork wasn't good and stuff like that, and those are all evidence of a quarterback who is not. They're overthinking things. Like if they're not just reacting and reading their progressions and just kind of like playing the game. If they're too much in their head, they play bad. And I think that he will kind of get out of that, but I also don't trust this offense to put the game away, especially because they've just had so many issues with drops. I think one of the big reasons why he struggled so badly with moving the ball is that he can't trust Chuba Hubbard to catch the ball like Christian McCaffrey, because Hubbard was dropping balls like crazy early in the season.
Yeah, that was. I loved Hubbard coming out, but that was the one thing I had questions about. Is he just really wasn't used much as a receiver in college?
Yeah, I think that they drafted him thinking he would be like CMC light, and he's definitely not that.
Oh no.
Yeah.
As far as like catching the ball.
Yeah, it seems like he's been a pretty effective runner at least, but
I thought he would be more of a compliment runner for McCaffrey. At least that's how Oklahoma State used him. But if that's the role that they had for Hubbard, that's not him. That's
what they were doing with him. And he struggles to break contact on the first hit.
He was always more of a home run guy. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. As your every down back,
right.
Not good. So
yeah.
So yeah, I kind of feel like those kind of things are gonna hamstring them a little bit. I think the defense will look good in the first few drives, maybe even the first half, and it'll look close. But as always seems to be with this Carolina Panthers team, the offense can't get out of their own way, and the defense will eventually falter. So that's where I'm looking at it.
Fair enough. I think that's a very reasonable take. Yeah, Eric, how are you feeling about this one?
Like I said earlier, man, I think we see a different Sam Darnold. I can't. There's nothing about this defense that makes me put a decent amount of trust and faith in them. I don't think this front seven is going to be able to touch Darnold, even against what a lot of people feel is an average offensive line in Carolina.
It's worse than it.
They had a below.
It's definitely worse than
average. But they had a below average Miami offensive line.
Miami was also one of the worst.
And Tua still accounted for 300 plus yards and 4 touchdowns. Like it's just, and the team still had a 1-point lead late in the fourth quarter. So I mean, I can't.
That's true.
I don't trust his defense. I think Darnold's going to be fine. I think that offense is going to be fine. Moore's probably going to have a touchdown catch as well.
He gets one for my fantasy team, but no more.
Right. And honestly, I think the Falcons offense gets off to a decent start early on, but I think that Panthers defense catches a groove in the second half, and it's they win by double digits.
Carolina. Wow.
Yeah.
Eric has clearly been very scarred by this team. So.
I am, man. I'm sorry. I can't. I'm not gonna sit here. I'm not like Adnan. Adnan gets a one good first half from a team, and he's already thinking Super Bowl or bust. Like I'm not.
No, I'm not. I never said Super Bowl, but wild card isn't outside the realm of possibility.
Hell no.
Exactly.
Hell no. This team won't sniff it. Absolutely.
Eric's on my level, so I understand.
Yeah, Eric's also crushed. Eric's like still in like the week 4 mindset. Yeah.
The Panthers were 3-0, and I remember the people on CSR and even friends of mine in fantasy leagues were like, "Oh, so what do you think about the Panthers in the playoffs?" I'm like, "I'm pretty sure they're going to lose in embarrassing fashion to the Cowboys this week," and they almost did. They made it competitive in the fourth quarter, but if you watch the whole game, they got dominated, and I was like, "Oh, cool. They made me appear right. I'm so happy." Thank
yes. You. Exactly. Well, that's what you always do with these takes, right? You like set it up so like either way you're happy. Either the Panthers win and you're like, "Oh, I'm happy they won," or you're like, "Oh, see, I was right." So that's a smart biz move right there.
Last year, Brian, after that week 2 loss to Dallas, I was already putting out mock drafts. So that should tell you everything you need to know. That if I envision the team to be a certain way, that's pretty much how they're going to be. I'm scarred, man. I'm sorry. It's just.
I feel you, man. I'm on your level. Trust me.
Yeah. I was doing mental gymnastics, thinking about how how could the Falcons make the playoffs after that 1-6 start?
Adnan was trying. He was trying.
He's not bullshit. Like I think they beat Denver, got the second win of the year. They were like 2-7. And he was like, "Hey, if they can win this,
so you're telling me there's a chance
they're back in the wild card picture." I'm like,
okay. In my defense, the NFL was talking about adding a third wild card team because of COVID.
They needed another. The league needed to add another 2 or 3 wild card teams.
And also Drew Brees went on IR, so I was like, "There's no way we're losing."
Oh yeah, we can beat the Saints. Yeah, of course.
Bless your heart.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, well, how are you feeling about this one, Adnan? Are you as down in the dumps as Eric?
No, I could never be that down in the dumps.
Damn, drop the hammer. Yeah.
No, I. However, just speaking seriously, I do think Sam Darnold has a great game. I think that the Falcons are a get-right team for quarterbacks who struggle.
Yep.
And we saw it with Tua last week. We saw it with Heineke. We saw it with Marcus Mariota a few years ago. That bought him a couple extra games before Ryan Tannehill took over in Tennessee. I do, however, I'm with Brian. I think that Darnold plays well. The Panthers play well, but I think the Falcons just eke it out in the end, just because I don't see anyone who can really check Kyle Pitts on Carolina's defense. And, I think the Falcons offense does just enough. And, maybe we even see a repeat of that Dolphins game where it comes down to the final drive, a final field goal. So, yeah, I'm going to roll with the optimism. And if the Falcons lose, I don't get a win and I don't get to be right.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat. I think that Darnold will have a better game than he's had. But I do think that the Falcons are if you look at the trajectory of the teams and how they're playing, I think the Falcons are starting to kind of find their footing a little bit. And the Panthers will be the most difficult defense they've faced. So I'm interested to see sort of how Arthur Smith's offense looks against a better overall unit. But yeah, I mean, I think Darnold will have a better game, and I think this will be close, and I think these divisional games usually will be close. So I think it's going to be 27-24. And I'm having the Falcons on the winning side of that, but it wouldn't also shock me if the Panthers were the ones, 27.
I'm not buying it.
But
nope.
I know you're not buying it, Eric. You got the Falcons losing by 2 touchdowns to the Panthers. Lost 4 straight. No respect at all for these Falcons.
Nope, I'm not buying it.
30, I feel like even Panthers fans wouldn't predict that. Only a Saints fan would have that sort of prediction. You're making me suspicious.
35-20 Panthers.
Wow. All right.
I don't see them scoring 35 points, but I will say just one last thing. I really wish J.C. Horn was playing because I think that Kyle Pitts versus J.C. Horn would be such a fun matchup.
Yeah, it was one of the best ones in college football.
We'll get it for the next decade after this season.
Look, Brian. Yeah. The Falcons have to depend on Steven Means to get sacks. All right, they're putting up 35 on his defense. All right,
not necessarily. Maybe they actually play Jacob Tuohy-Mariner and Ogundeji more.
Another practice squad guy. They got to depend on those.
Hey, JTM's better than that.
Defensive player of the week, Jacob Tuohy-Mariner to you, Eric.
Jacob Tuohy-Mariner is okay, all right. He's a good edge 3, He's an edge 4, okay, but he's a respectable edge 4.
Yeah, you're lucky.
So we're banking on the practice squad guys now. Okay.
Hey,
exactly.
You sound like Panthers fans. Okay.
Exactly. That's why I say Carolina's going to put up 35.
Look, the Falcons have very good edge 3. I think Ogundeji could be a very good edge 3 eventually. I think Jacob Tuohy-Mariner is a good edge 4. The problem is they don't have an edge 1 or 2. That's the issue.
Exactly. And for this game, we're depending on those guys to be edge 1 and edge 2.
Yeah, exactly. That's the problem. The 3 and 4 are in place. But the 1 and 2.
Darnold's going to save his job this week.
Well, if he runs for a couple touchdowns, I would say yes.
Wouldn't be surprised if he does. Would not be surprised if he does. Hell, Tua just ran over our starting strong safety for 3rd and 6 last week.
Eric Harris messed up his shoulder on that play. He was going to make the tackle. You could see it.
Tua.
It was his wrist.
Well, whatever.
Dude. You could see he had him grabbed, and I don't know if he broke his wrist or what, but it was bad. He couldn't grab on. So I don't blame Eric Harris too much for that. I think he got legitimately hurt on that play.
It's Tua.
He hurt himself. Okay, look, these guys aren't
you
Superman.
Hurt yourself tackling a small court. Kevin.
It's a physics thing, Eric. If you look at the fulcrum, you get your protractor out, examine the angle of attack. Okay, you get your graphing calculator out. You do the math. That's how football is determined.
How would you feel if Jeremy Chin dislocated his shoulder trying to tackle Matt Ryan on the third down play and Matt got the first down? Like, how would you feel? Would you honestly feel like, what the fuck?
I would feel like Jeremy Chin is not an NFL player.
Thank you.
At least Matt Ryan's like over 200
We're
pounds.
starting a not NFL player at safety. They're going to get 35, okay?
I don't know. I think 35 is aggressive. But
24-23 Falcons.
They give up 28. They give up 28 to Tua.
Yeah, but like Tua's not that bad.
Tua's okay. I mean, I don't like Tua.
Tua definitely.
Okay.
If you want to compare the weaponry that Tua had compared to what Darnold has, Tua had to depend on Mac Hollins.
I'd mostly Jalen Waddle.
I'd also take
Isaiah Ford.
I'd take Tua as a quarterback over Darnold.
Oh yeah.
But I would definitely take what Darnold has at his disposal as far as skill position guy. Give me DJ Moore. Give me Robbie Anderson. I can take Tommy Tremble. I can work with that.
I think 35. Mike Gesicki is better than those guys. Well, not than the receivers.
They'll score 35.
Okay.
Gesicki's definitely been better than Anderson this year. I mean, I know it's tight end versus
DJ Moore is really good. And I think Robbie Anderson will be better. But yeah, we'll see. I do think it's going to be a good game, though. That's my hope. I just want, after the way the season started for us and how the season's been for you Panthers fans, Brian, I think we're all just hoping for a good game, that's not like a joke or that makes us feel terrible about ourselves. So that's what I'm rooting for.
I do prefer when the Falcons and Panthers games aren't just factories of sadness. It's always good.
That's my preferred thing. So that's what I'm rooting for in this one. And yeah, really appreciate you coming on, Brian. I looked at my DMs and I was like, oh, I think we had Brian on last year, right? No, it's been 2 or 3 years. So I apologize for that. That's not going to happen again. But
that's fine.
Thanks for coming on. And I think I forgot to update my little card for you. So your new handle is Brian B CSR, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's the new handle. Don't listen to whatever the show says. It's Brian B. CSR.
I realized it was just easier to have a Twitter handle that was easier to spell. So
yeah, because then you're gonna get the beaver slut thing going, and generally, as much fun as it is to say that, that's not really your name. So that's hard for Twitter.
It's also not conducive to picking up Twitter followers. So yeah.
No, I mean I'd be interested in someone named that, but I can't speak for the general public there.
I guess I should change my Twitter name to Beaver Sluts then. Okay.
Yeah. I like that. That's good. It's got pop. It's got pop for sure. But
Lord, where did this show go?
Yeah, Brian. Anything you'd like to plug? Anything? Obviously, Cat Scratch Reader. Anything else going on over there?
I am the social media Cesar. So usually, if you see us, if you see CSR interacting with Falcoholic, it's generally me. So
yep.
Feel free to follow along. I know that a lot of our fans really enjoy our back and forth banter. So
absolutely
feel free to do that. And also check out the Keep Sounding podcast if you want to hear a bunch of really pessimistic Panthers fans talk about the Panthers. So that's the SB Nation official podcast for Cat Scratch Reader. So we'll have an episode up for you on Friday. But yeah, other than that, I don't really got anything.
The one thing I can always appreciate about the Panthers fan base is that we can come together and shit on the Saints collectively.
Yes, fuck the Saints.
Exactly.
Yeah. Hate them.
I love that. Yeah.
I do want to end it with just this one thing. I've said for many, many years, I would lose every game of the Panthers season if it meant they could embarrass the Saints.
Mm-hmm.
And they got one of those games out of the way this year. So this might just be our penance for that, is beating the shit out of the Saints in week 2. So if they beat the shit out of the Saints at the end of the year, hell, maybe we lose every other game. That's fine. Whatever.
I'm on it. Let's do it.
Yeah. Also, tonight we have Eric Robinson. He's on Twitter at @Eric_Robinson. Eric, anything you're working on you'd like to plug?
Yeah, just be on the lookout later this week for the Panthers Preview, where I try to give the optimistic Falcons fan, some hope, even though I'm going to kill it with our also staff predictions later this week that's going to come out. So be on the lookout.
Dropping the hammer, man. No faith. Okay, well, somebody had to do it.
Then I'm going to bring you down.
Somebody had to do it. All right. Also with us tonight, last but not least, Adnan Ikic. She's at Say Which Way. Adnan, anything you'd like to plug tonight?
Series history and the What If We Win or Lose article is coming out on Saturday.
All right. Excellent, guys. Yeah, before I do my stuff, just want to remind folks to please like and subscribe if you haven't done that already. Those metrics really help us out. Check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/Falcoholic Live. Update on the Q&A session. I'm actually going to wait till next week because of the World Series. So I don't want to force, patrons to have to choose between coming to that or watching the World Series. So we're just going to do that next week. We'll postpone it a week, and we'll go from there. So keep an eye on the Patreon page for the scheduling of that. And then, check out the Discord, or follow the show on Twitter, Falcoholic Live. And you can follow me at Falcoholic Kevin. I'm Kevin Knight. I will have my game picks tomorrow, and then have some other stuff, my stats preview, matchups to watch, all that good stuff going into Sunday, where we will also have, of course, our Week 8 post-game show following the clash with the Panthers. So until Sunday, guys, thank you so much for tuning into the Falcoholic Live. We will see you on Sunday. Have a great night, folks.